Okay, welcome to 15.3. Find the length of a leg, right? So in the last lesson, 15.2, we were always finding the length of the hypotenuse, the longest side of a right triangle. Now we're going to be finding one of the two short sides. So let's start by reminding ourselves how to find the length of the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the longest side opposite the right angle. We're going to use the Pythagorean theorem, which says you take the first leg and square it. Doesn't matter which one is first. Take the second leg and square it, and that will equal the hypotenuse squared. Not the hypotenuse squared. I'm going to call the first leg 15 and square it. I'm going to call the second leg 20 and square it. And that is going to equal the hypotenuse squared. Right? 15 times 15 is 225. Remember, we memorized these in the last unit for this reason. 20 times 20 is 400, right? Because 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 20 is 40. So 20 times 20, add 2 zeros, 400. 225 plus 400 is 625. We've memorized the square root of 625, right? There are two square roots, the positive square root, the negative one. We're crossing out the negative one, and the hypotenuse here is 25. Today's math is going to look a little different, right? These are quadratic equations. That's because they have x squared in them. And so you do the same thing we learned in 15.1. You subtract 16 from both sides. X squared equals 9. X equals 3 and negative 3. Do not cross out the negative answer. This is not the side of a right triangle. The math says there's two answers. We're crossing that one in the last problem out because the side of a triangle can't be a negative number. Do the other one. We're subtracting 144 because it's a positive 144. This plus sign goes with the x squared. So that's a positive x squared. 169 minus 144 turns out to be 25, right? Two possible values of x, 5 and negative 5, right? Those are the solutions of the quadratic equation, 5 and negative 5. Please, on the test, see how these are different. We leave the negative answer when it's a plain old equation. We cross it out when we're asked for the side of a triangle. So now we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem to find the missing side that's shorter, the legs. So the key to this is knowing which of these numbers has to be the hypotenuse. Well, the hypotenuse has got to be this one opposite the right angle. So when we put the numbers in the math, a leg is missing, all right? And we know one leg is 4, and one leg, and the hypotenuse, the longest side, has to go over there. If you don't put the biggest number over there, you're going to get it wrong. Now it's just doing the math we already know how to do from 15.1. L squared equals 9. So L equals 3 and negative 3. It is the side of a right triangle, so we're crossing it out. This side is 3. If you look up Pythagorean theorem from other teachers, instead of writing a leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared, they're going to write a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This is also how your parents learned it. Those are the same things. So here's an example showing they're the same. We know c here is 25. You know b here is 24. So a leg is missing here. This short side has got to be a leg. So I'm going to put a instead of leg this time. So it's a squared plus 24 squared, which is b, equals 25 squared. Now 25 squared we've memorized as 625. You're going to start memorizing 24 times 24 because it's going to come up a lot in this unit, but let's do it this time. 4 times 4 is 16. 2 times 4 is 8 plus 1 is 9. Step over. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. And it turns out it's 576. So we have a squared plus 576 equals 625. We subtract 576 from both sides. A squared equals, can't take 6 from 5, we're borrowing. 15 minus 6, 9. Can't take 7 from 1, we're borrowing. Oh, look at that. A squared equals 49. That's a perfect square. So A equals 7 or negative 7, but we cross out the negative, and so A equals 7, that leg. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, same thing as leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. So when you see pictures like this, the key to it is you really only need one side of the picture. Hopefully you see two right triangles, but they're both the same, just facing opposite ways. So this is a wire that's holding up this pole. They're going to find this distance from the top of the wire down to the ground. Hopefully we see that this side has to be our hypotenuse. So we're going to do a missing leg squared plus the other leg is 7 equals 25 squared. 7 squared is 49, 25 squared is 625. We're subtracting 49 from both sides. L squared equals borrowing, 15 minus 9, 6. 11 minus 4, 7 equals 570. What's the square root of 576? Well, we just did it in the last problem, right? It's 24 and negative 24. Now, this is a word problem. These were feet. So word problems always have words on the answer. And so it's 24 feet. Now, if you hadn't just done this, right, you know 625 makes 25, right? So 576 must be less than 25. So you should be guessing something that ends in a 6, like 24 times 24 ends in a 6. Once you know that, it's a good guess, right? And you do the work, and yes, you get 576. So now, most right triangles, remember this only works for right triangles, most right triangles have an irrational side. So let's see that. This is a leg missing. This is the hypotenuse. Notice the biggest number here is 11. Square root of 96, right, is a little less than 10, right? Because square root of 100 is 10. The biggest number is 11. Square root of 96 is smaller. So we have leg squared plus square root of 96 squared equals 11 squared. So leg squared, square root of 96 squared just cancels out, 96. 11 squared is 121. Subtract 96 from both sides. The missing leg squared equals borrowing. 11 minus 6 is 5. 11 minus 9 is 2. Oh, look at that. It's a perfect square. L equals 5 and negative 5. Crossing out the negative, the missing leg was 5. So squares and square roots just cancel each other out. You have to do this in 3 dimensions as per the Common Core standards. So hopefully you can look at the side of this box and you can visualize, oh, there's a right triangle. This side is 7, this side we don't know, and this diagonal is 9. Now, this is length. You're finding length CG here. It says round the irrational square root to the nearest 10th. All right, so that means it's not coming out nicely. The hypotenuse has to be the 9. So I'm going to put the 7 first just to show you that's the same as putting it second. 7 squared plus leg squared equals 9 squared. 49 plus leg squared equals 81. Subtract 49 from both sides. Leg squared equals 32. Well, that's not a perfect square. So the leg equals the positive and negative square roots of 32, but we aren't going to cross out the negative square root of 32. And it says round. Yesterday I let you leave that. Today we're going to round it to the nearest tenth. So square root of 32 is between square root of 25 and the square root of 36. It's 4 that way. It is 7 that way. So it is closer to 6. So it's 5.7, 5.8 are the good guesses. Let's try 5.7. I don't know the answer. I'm guessing just like you would. 7 times 7 is 49. 7 times 5 is 35 plus 4 is 39. Step over. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times 5 is 25 plus 3 is 28. 9, 14, 4 is 12. And I'm getting 32.49. I'm going to go with that, all right, because 5.8 would be too high. 5.6, if I was on a test, I would check that to make sure that it's not 5.6. It might be, but I'm going to stop and say it's approximately 5.7, right? And we're using the approximate symbol for that. So most city streets, right, you have to drive east and west and north and south like that, right? It's unusual to be able to drive along a hypotenuse diagonally. Let's see what this missing leg of the trip is called. If you've heard the expression leg of a trip, that comes from Pythagorean theorem and right triangles. And these are miles. So it's 9 miles. So notice, if it drives around the lake, it's 9 plus 12, 21 miles to work. This is supposed to be the picture of the home, and this is supposed to be the picture of work. Notice, if you could drive directly to work, you would save 6 miles because it's 15 miles directly there. I didn't ask you that. That's just a little bonus. Notice the biggest number here is 8, right? Square root of 55 is smaller than 8. This is a leg. This is the hypotenuse. Square root of 55 squared, 55. So the leg here is 3, right? The square root of 55, right, is between the square root of 64 and 49, right? It's 7 point something. Oh, there's my college graduation photo. So you can compare that to my high school photo. I grew up a lot in those 4 years. Again, the secret to these pictures, you really only need one of the sides. You don't need 2 right triangles.